You're listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast.
Welcome to The Whole Truth podcast. I'm Paul Armstrong. We spoke to Malcolm Norris. He's the Managing Director of Sunstone Metals. Malcolm and his team have got serious form. They've made two great discoveries in the past that have taken companies from virtually worthless to almost $1 billion in both cases. He and his team are highly successful. They are very well regarded. I think it's probably fair to say Malcolm's one of the best regarded geologists in Australia. And he seems to have been on to another big success story, this time in Ecuador. That's where he made his most recent discovery with a company that you might be familiar with called SolGold, now worth the best part of $1 billion. Malcolm's got a discovery in the north of Ecuador and a big discovery in the south of Ecuador. He takes us through what he's got. The company is pretty cheap. The shares are about 3 odd cents. Malcolm says that the market is undervaluing what he's got, and he's determined to show investors why he's onto another winner. It is a bit technical in part, so if you can wade through some of the geology, I think you'll really enjoy the chat. Malcolm, we're all watching for the cricket to start in England, mate, and the Ashes, and you're already on a hat-trick, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right, Paul. We're hoping to deliver a couple of discoveries, in fact, in Ecuador in the short term. The team has been involved in 2 previous discoveries. And, you know, these things go back a long way. I mean, I've been working with Bruce Rawlack since our days at WMC together back in the mid to late 90s. And so, you know, you develop a very good working relationship, but you also develop that ability to challenge one another. And discoveries only come from a team that can challenge one another and be really focused and really understand what we're seeing. So we're involved in the...
You and Bruce found the one in Indonesia, and I can never pronounce the name of it. That was your first big discovery, wasn't it? Can you put me out of my misery and tell me what it was, how you say it?
Yeah. So it was called Tujuh Bukit, which means 7 hills. And it was a large porphyry with an epithermal, so a large gold copper porphyry with an epithermal gold silver cap sitting over the top of it. So it was a phenomenal discovery with contribution from a very large team of people. It had been previously explored by a junior. We looked at those results. We liked what we saw. And so we continued the exploration beyond that. And then we're also involved in the discovery of SolGold's Alpala deposit within the Cascabel project in northern Ecuador. Similarly, we looked at some early data that was generated by Cornerstone Capital, which was the Canadian junior that held the concession. And we really liked what we saw. And we knew the Cornerstone people. This was a long-term personal relationship that I'd had with some of the people at Cornerstone. So we liked what we saw in their early data. We signed the joint venture. Bruce Rawlack planned all the drilling, and that led to a very significant discovery. So having been there a couple of times, I think that reduces the risk that is associated with exploration. And when you're onto a good project, it enables you to move to discovery, hopefully in a more efficient path. And that's what we're trying to do at Sunstone, both in the north and the south.
That discovery of SolGold that you and your team made, it shows how much money can be made, doesn't it, out of exploration success? I mean, what's the market cap of SolGold now?
Oh, yeah, the market cap of SolGold, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's $700 or $800 million Aussie. But the great examples. So Intrepid went from a 40 million market cap to 1.2 billion market cap in a period of about 18 months during the discovery. SolGold, similarly, it was a combination of discovery and a combination of, that complemented by BHP and Newcrest going onto the register, and that really drove up the valuation. And it went from a 50 million British pound market cap through to several hundred million British pound market cap.
So you and the team basically are looking to repeat it again. That's hence my phrase at the outset. You're on a hat trick. You've done it twice. The market cap of Sunstone is what now?
Yeah, our market cap is sort of moving between 80 million and 100 million. So it's very low. We would obviously argue that it's undervalued, and we're looking to deliver a 10-bagger here. We're not about incremental increase because discovery adds so much value. Because discovery is very difficult. It's very difficult business. It's high risk, but it's very high reward.
Yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted, is it? But as you say, so you've done it. You and the team have done this twice before. What are some of the similarities, if you like, at Sunstone now? You've got, in simple terms, take us through it, Malcolm. You've got two projects, one in the north of Ecuador, one in the south of Ecuador, and you've had some great results.
We have. So let's start on the project in the south. It's called Brahmaderos. We've been exploring there since about 2017, and it's a cluster of porphyries. So porphyries often occur in clusters. It's not just a discrete deposit. Often you get 3 or 4 of these porphyries sitting together, and that's what we're seeing at Brahmaderos. And there had been some historical drilling done there, so we knew that it was a porphyry style of mineralisation. We knew that it had the capability to deliver grades that were most likely commercially viable. So that got us off to a good start. But some of the targets that we've drilled had never been drilled historically, and the best example is Limon, where we're getting some really good results now. So we've got a porphyry, and then at Limon we've got this gold-silver system that's sitting above or beside porphyry mineralisation as well. And so there's some parallels to be drawn there with what we did in Indonesia, where we discovered a porphyry and we discovered what's called an epithermal gold-silver system that sits above or beside the porphyry. So, we're seeing some similarities there, certainly some similarities in the rock type and alteration, all those things that you look at.
And you've already got a whopping resource down there, haven't you? I mean, it's not as though this is just early stage exploration. You know that you've already established gold and copper extensively, haven't you?
Most definitely. So we've got a resource on the Brahma Alba system, which is 2 porphyries that coalesce, and that's delivered 2.7 million ounces gold equivalent. So it's 156 million tonnes of gold, copper, and a bit of silver, and that's porphyry mineralisation that's at surface. So you can walk up the hill and look at your ore body.
So you're on your way to a 10 million ounce sort of inventory, it would seem.
Yep, that's the number we've put out there, and when you look at 2.7 million ounces gold equivalent in the resource, you then look at the additional exploration target, which we've put out there as 3.3 to 8.6 million ounces gold equivalent. And that's, we think, somewhat conservative. So if you take a midpoint of that and say it's 5, then you're already at 7.7 million ounces, close to 8. And then we've recently delivered these phenomenal results from Limon. And that area where we're drilling was outside of that exploration target. So it's in addition to that exploration target. So I think 10 million ounces is a great target, and we can see it in sight.
So how do you monetize that? People listening to this, Malcolm, would say that's a whopping amount of gold. I mean, compared to anything operating in Australia, that is huge by any standard. So, and the shares are 3.3 cents. How do you explain that apparent disconnect, and how do you monetize that?
Yeah, so I think, we released that resource in December last year, the 2.7 million ounces gold equivalent. It's a low-grade resource, and I think people were potentially hoping for a higher grade. We acknowledge that. So we went searching for higher grade material, because if you've got higher grade material at the front end of any sort of production scenario that allows you to pay back your capital and to generate a lot of cash, then you can obviously feed in lower grade material after that, and you're still making very good commercial sense on any development. So we went looking, where are we going to find the higher grade? We went to Limon, we identified it, we drilled holes, and we found the higher grade. So we absolutely delivered what we said we were going to deliver. And by adding this higher grade at the front end, it means that the value of what we've already defined is greatly increased. So I suspect that in the current environment, people are just waiting for a couple more drill holes out of Le Mans, which aren't too far away, and they'll realise that the value of this project is much higher than what the market is giving us.
And that Le Mans discovery is it all sits outside the current resource figures that you quoted, doesn't it? So that's all waiting, as you say, a couple more holes, you'll be able to start to bring that into that resource figure.
Yeah, that's right. So it'll give investors a lot more confidence that it's there, that it's the grade that we expect it to be based on our first couple of drill holes. You know, we're seeing visible gold and in both of the drill holes that we've put out there. So pretty exciting.
And then you've got more than that, though, haven't you? So that's down in the south. If you can jump on the helicopter and head up to the north of Ecuador, Malcolm, where it kind of all started for you and Sunstone originally, you've got some strong results up there, but you haven't advanced it to the same stage, have you?
That's right. So yeah, it's a fantastic project at El Palmar in the north. This was a project that had 3 historical drill holes into it by Codelco over a decade ago. We looked at those. We saw that it was porphyry mineralised. We liked the look of the other surface data like early stage mapping, geochem, etc. We dived in. We drilled 21 holes into one target. All holes were mineralised, and in fact, the last hole that we released, we saw a vertical column of mineralisation of 900 metres. So this thing is big. And now more recently, we've started stepping away from where those 21 drill holes are, and we're delivering some very exciting results from these other targets. You know, I say from the experience we've had, you typically need 10,000 metres into a porphyry project to really get your head around it, and that's what we feel like. We've got great momentum at El Palmar. Very excited by what we're seeing. This project will host a large porphyry discovery, and hopefully we're just a few holes away from that.
The funny thing is, they use the phrase in your game, Malcolm, elephant hunting, don't they? And the funny thing is about porphyries is they are just very difficult to find, as you say, huge amounts of drilling. They are absolute needle in the haystack stuff. But history suggests that once you've found one, the ability to make huge money out of it is absolutely sensational, isn't it? They are really about the most rewarding things in the game.
Yeah, they are. You've got to have that right combination of near-surface mineralisation or large areas of mineralisation at a grade that accommodates underground development. So you've got to have all of those things. But typically, if you drill a porphyry, you're going to find those areas anyway. Look, there's a great example from our discovery in Indonesia, Tujuh Bukit, where one of the early holes drilled by a previous explorer missed the ore body by 100 metres, but the ore body was 2 kilometres by 1 kilometre in size. You sort of look back and you think, how on earth do you miss it by just 100 metres? But they just didn't drill quite deeply enough. These are huge deposits, but you've got to work hard to find them. And we're now feeling very confident about the project in the north, project in the south, delivering really significant porphyry discoveries on both of them.
And the world is obviously the low-hanging fruit in exploration has been taken. The easy stuff's gone. The big boys of the world, in North America, they're looking for major deposits, likes of the sorts of things you found in the south of Ecuador. Is there a risk here that basically Sunstone gets taken out before it gets to really prove to the world what a vast discovery or discoveries it's got? Does that keep you awake at night?
Yeah, it's definitely a risk. We certainly are concerned about making sure that our valuation is appropriate for what we believe we've got, and so we try to communicate that to investors. That's certainly something that may happen to Sunstone in the future, and we've just got to work hard at making sure that our shareholders and our investors are handsomely rewarded for the success that we expect to deliver. These deposit types are, as we've said at the outset, difficult to find. People are looking for them. People want them. The majors want them. It gives them 10, 20, 30, up to 50 years of mine life, exactly the assets they want to have. And we're hoping to deliver 2 of them into the public domain over the next few months.
Some people would probably look at it, Malcolm, and say, look, why don't you get one of the majors to come and take a stake in either project or in the company? It'd give a big, huge shot in the arm to the share price and give you some money. What's your thoughts on that approach?
Yeah, that's a valuation approach, and it is something that we would always contemplate at the appropriate valuation and in the appropriate structure. What we wouldn't want to see is for us to give away all the upside potential and therefore upside valuation to bring someone in that might not necessarily do as good a job as what we can do. We believe we can do a pretty good job here. We've got a phenomenal team in Ecuador, and we've got a great small team in Australia. So that could happen, but it's got to be at the right valuation for our shareholders to benefit. They've absolutely got to benefit.
They must be all over you though, wouldn't they? I mean, the big guys would be well aware of what you've got and what you're doing. They don't let these things go under the radar, do they? No,
they're aware of what we're doing and what we've got, and so they should be. Their business development teams would have their lists of opportunities, and we're certainly on them. So, we put a lot of information out there. They've probably got a pretty good idea of what's ahead of us, actually. So let's see what happens.
Now, in a couple of weeks' time, you're coming over the Gold Coast to the Resources Rising Stars conference. I know you've been a few times in the past, so the people over there have followed the story, but it sort of feels that this year you're right at the witching hour. You've got some great results as you've just taken us through, but what couldn't people expect to hear from you in a couple of weeks' time? You did allude a few minutes ago to the idea there's some more results coming. Could it be a bit of good timing for you? Or for investors, shall we say?
Yeah, for investors, great timing. Yes, between now and then we'll have updates on both El Palmar in the north and Brahmaderos in the south. It's great timing. We've taken a lot of the risk out of both projects with recent drill results. And I think that there's a pretty clear picture for investors to see what's ahead of them. So it's great timing. We're going to deliver some good results over the next few weeks. So I'm really keen to interact with investors and to present at the conference. It'll be a really exciting period for us.
The track record of you and your team, Malcolm, means that you obviously know what you're looking for, and more importantly, you know what you see, and both in terms of what's coming out of the ground of the holes and of the potential. I know from having worked with you for a long time, you're very measured and almost understated about things. So to hear you being so bullish about both projects is very, very, very warms the cockles of one's heart to hear the geologists with so much success behind them talk so bullishly about something. So the presentation on the Gold Coast, I think, were absolutely fantastic. I know we've had a few people already contact us asking when you're talking and the like, and if you can't make it to the Gold Coast, then people will be able to watch that online. So I'm sure you'll have plenty of viewers when you stand up to talk. Thanks very much for joining us today, and it's been great to have a chat. It sounds sensational what you're onto, and we'll be watching it and look forward to seeing you on the Gold Coast in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, a very exciting couple of weeks ahead of us, topped off by the conference, so can't wait to present.
Good on you. Thanks, Malcolm.
Thanks, Paul.
You've been listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast, produced by Resource Media, hosted by Paul Armstrong for Reed Corporate. Please note that Reed Corporate does not provide investment advice, and investors should seek personalised advice before making any investment decisions.